How did Native Americans sleep warmly on the coldest winter nights? These secrets of history shock many. Winter on the Great Plains and in the Northeast woodlands is not just cold. It is an ordeal that lasts for months, with piercing winds, deep snow, and temperatures capable of stopping life. For the indigenous peoples of America, who lived here long before the advent of modern insulation and central heating, winter was a time of survival that required ingenious solutions. They did not fight nature. They understood its laws and used them to their advantage. Their dwellings, clothing, and sleeping gear were not just objects, but an integrated system, honed over millennia. The secret lay not in one thing, but in the harmony of many details. Watch this video to the end, and you will learn how one simple detail in a Tipis design could save its inhabitants from suffocation, and why the Iroquois preferred to sleep not on the floor, but on the second floor of their homes. What if I told you that the world's most effective insulator was not created in a lab, but by nature, and Native Americans knew this thousands of years ago? I'm talking about the bison. Its hide is not just fur. It's a complex, multi-level engineering system. The Plains peoples, like the Lakota or Cheyenne, valued it above all other materials, and for good reason. The secret lies in its two layers. The outer layer consists of long, coarse, and hollow guard hairs that repel water and snow, preventing them from soaking through. This hollow hair also creates an air trap, similar to modern synthetic insulators. Beneath this protective layer is an incredibly dense and soft undercoat, known as bison down. It is so dense that wind simply cannot penetrate it to the skin. This down provides the primary heat retention. When a bison hide was processed, it wasn't just stretched, it was done intelligently. The inner side, the flesh side, was meticulously scraped and softened using natural fats, making it soft and supple, like suede. This prevented the hide from cracking and hardening in the cold. A hide processed this way, or a robe, served as a blanket, a mattress, and a cloak. When sleeping, a person would wrap themselves in it with the fur facing inward. The soft undercoat would touch the body, while the durable leather side remained on the outside, blocking drafts. Unlike woven blankets, the dense leather was impermeable to cold air. This created a perfect cocoon, preserving body heat. But there was another, less obvious insulator used by the woodland peoples: dry sphagnum moss. This material has astonishing absorbent properties. It would wick moisture away from the body while remaining dry to the touch. It was stuffed into moccasins and used as a lining and bedding to draw away sweat. The subarctic peoples like the Cree also relied on caribou fur. Caribou hairs, like those of the bison, are hollow, which makes them a superb insulator. This made parkas, outerwear, and sleeping robes incredibly lightweight and warm. Lightness was critical for a nomadic lifestyle in the tundra, where every extra gram mattered. The combination of these materials created a multi-layered defense. First might be a layer of moss to wick moisture, then clothing made of soft deer skin. On top, the person was covered by a heavy bison or caribou robe. This system was far more effective than simply piling on several layers of fabric. This ingenious combination of natural materials is striking in its thoughtfulness. What other natural insulators used by ancient peoples are you aware of? Share your knowledge in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to learn more about the wisdom of indigenous peoples. Have you ever wondered why the teepee on the Great Plains wasn't blown away by hurricane-force winds, and why you could have a fire inside without suffocating? The answer lies in its brilliant yet simple aerodynamics. A teepee is not just a cone, as many think. Its base is actually shaped like a slightly elongated oval, not a perfect circle. The frame of long pine poles was set up asymmetrically. The back, windward side was steeper, and the entrance side was more sloped. This gave the structure incredible stability against the strongest prairie winds. The wind flowed around the dwelling without creating excessive pressure on any one point. The cover, made of sewn bison hides, did not reach the ground. There was always a gap between the bottom edge of the cover and the soil. Fresh air constantly entered the dwelling through this gap. This airflow was absolutely essential for the hearth's fire and for people to breathe. But what about the cold drafts coming from this gap? For this, there was an inner lining, or ozan. This was a second wall made of thinner hides, or later canvas. It ran along the inner perimeter of the teepee up to human height. This lining created an air pocket between the two layers. Cold air entering from the bottom did not blow on the people, but was instead channeled upwards between the walls. As it rose, it warmed up and helped push the smoke from the fire out. It was a simple and effective system for both ventilation and insulation. The hearth itself was not located directly in the center, as one might assume. It was slightly offset toward the entrance. This made the living area in the back of the teepee more spacious and smoke-free. The smoke exited through the opening at the top, directly above the fire. The smoke hole at the top was not just a hole. It was equipped with two special flaps, or wings. These were two pieces of hide attached to separate poles. By using these poles, which were accessible from the outside, the flaps could be adjusted. The teepee's inhabitants would adjust the position of the wings based on the wind's direction. This way, the wind wouldn't blow out the fire or fill the teepee with smoke. On the contrary, it helped create a draft, actively pulling the smoke out. This system allowed for fine-tuning the dwelling's microclimate. This well-designed system of ventilation and insulation turned the teepee into an effective and comfortable home. But what about the settled peoples of the Northeast? Are you ready to learn why the Iroquois longhouses were warmer in winter than European log cabins of the same period? What I am about to tell you might change your perception of primitive dwellings. The Iroquois longhouse, or Haudenosaunee, was a true marvel of engineering. It was a truly unique architectural object, an incredibly well-thought-out dwelling that was not just a house, but an entire multifunctional structure. It served several functions at once. It was a shelter, a place for living, storage, work, and even social gatherings. Housing dozens of families, the Longhouse was a true apartment building of the ancient world, with a sophisticated heating and spatial organization system, perfectly adapted to the harsh climatic conditions. The foundation of the structure was a massive frame assembled from posts of elm or cedar dug into the ground, which were strong and durable. These posts served as the basis for the entire structure, ensuring its stability and longevity. The tree trunks were bent and tied at the top, forming an arched roof that was not only architecturally efficient, but also symbolized unity and strength. This shape was not chosen by chance. It was distinguished by its ability to withstand extreme loads, such as heavy snowfall in winter. Snow falling on the roof distributed the load evenly, preventing it from accumulating and threatening a collapse, as might happen with a conventional angled roof. The walls and roof of the Longhouse were covered with large sheets of elm bark, which became its protective shell. Elm bark was ideal for this purpose, flexible, strong, and durable. The bark was harvested in the spring when it was especially pliable due to the sap. Afterward, it was sewn to the frame in such a way that the inner, smooth side faced outward. When the bark dried, it shrank and formed a strong, almost waterproof covering that protected from rain and snow, and also served as good insulation. The sheets of bark resembled large sheets of plywood, but they were much more ecological and durable, perfectly suited for use in a harsh climate where access to building materials was limited. The Longhouse was truly long, sometimes reaching 60 or even 100 meters in length, and it was not just a covered hut, but an entire settlement in one building. Inside, the house was divided into several compartments, each housing 2 families. These compartments were located on both sides of a wide central corridor. The corridor was not just part of the building, it was the heart of the house, a place where people met, socialized, and cooked. It not only connected all parts of the house, but also served as the center of social life. A series of hearths was located in this corridor. Each pair of families shared one fire, which was a source of heat and was also used for cooking. The smoke from these fires rose up, where special smoke holes were made in the roof. These holes could be partially covered or opened depending on the situation, which allowed for regulating the amount of smoke being vented. This was not just convenient, it also ensured stable air circulation. Thanks to this process, the air in the Longhouse was always fresh and healthy, despite the large number of people inside. However, the main secret to the warmth lay not only in the number of hearths or smoke holes, but in a multi-level system that was not just a function of convenience, but a strategy for efficiently heating the entire house. Wide sleeping platforms ran along the walls, raised about a meter above the cold earthen floor. The sleeping areas were above the level of drafts, which avoided direct contact with the cold that was always present on the ground. These platforms served as both protection and a comfortable space for sleep. Above these platforms, at a height of about 2 meters, was a second tier, wide shelves that played an important role not only for storing supplies, but also in creating a warm microclimate. They served as a kind of ceiling over the sleeping areas, trapping some of the heat that rose from the hearths in the central corridor. The warm air rising up would meet the shelves and be trapped there, forming a cozy, warm zone for sleeping. People slept in these alcoves, protected from cold air currents from above and below, creating ideal conditions for rest and sleep, even on the most severe winter nights. The entire structure was designed with heat conservation in mind. The thick bark walls not only served as protection from wind and cold, but also created a barrier against snow and rain. The absence of windows also played a role. This way, there were no heat leaks. Heavy hides were hung at the entrances, which were located at the ends of the house, and sometimes additional vestibules were created to minimize heat loss. This was a true wall of security that protected the internal space from deep frosts and cold winds. The ingenious multi-level structure of the Iroquois house is a vivid example of how architecture can serve comfort and survival. This structure not only provided shelter from the external elements, but also maintained order and structure in life. The space was organized with maximum efficiency, and every element of the design had its role. Such a house provided the family with everything necessary: warmth, comfort, protection, and community. This well-thought-out system and powerful architectural idea can be considered not only an outstanding achievement in construction, but also an example of the wisdom and practicality that indigenous peoples not only developed, but successfully used. If you are also impressed by this sophisticated system, don't forget to like this video. Are you ready to learn the truth about what Native Americans actually slept on and why they almost never lay on the bare ground? For many nomadic peoples, like the Comanche or Arapaho, the sleeping area was mobile, but always organized. No one went to sleep directly on the cold floor of the Tipi, even if it was earth. The central place in the sleeping area was occupied by a mat of processed bison hides. They were laid out fur side up, creating a soft and warm surface. But underneath these hides, there was always another invisible layer. This layer was the key to insulation. It was a thick mat of dry grass, reeds, or thin willow branches. This layer created an air pocket. It was the air trapped in the dry grass that cut off the cold rising from the frozen ground. This is the same principle used in modern camping mats. This grass bedding was refreshed regularly. Old, damp, or compressed grass was removed. Fresh, dry grass was brought in to replace it. This was important not only for warmth, but also for hygiene and comfort. For the Iroquois and other woodland peoples, the sleeping places were stationary, as we've already mentioned. The platforms, or bunks, were made of planks or tightly packed branches. They were covered with mats woven from corn husks, reeds, or strips of bark. Mattresses were placed on top of these mats. These were bags made of deerskin. They were stuffed with dry moss, waterfowl feathers, or even cattail down. These natural fillers were soft and held heat excellently, creating a comfortable bed. In subarctic regions where building materials were scarce, Athabascan peoples created temporary shelters from snow and branches. But even there, the sleeping place was a priority. The floor was covered with a thick layer of spruce boughs. This layer could be up to half a meter thick. The spruce branches were laid in a specific way, like shingles, so that the soft needles were on top. This springy and aromatic mattress not only insulated from the snow, it also provided ventilation, preventing moisture from building up under the sleeper. Caribou or bear hides were spread over the boughs. A bear hide, with its thick layer of subcutaneous fat and dense fur, was prized especially high. It served as an impenetrable barrier to the cold. Thus, the key principle was always to create a multi-layered barrier between the body and the cold ground. What do you think was more important, a warm bed mat or a warm blanket? In the next chapter, we'll learn how to use fire correctly so that it provides heat all night. Fire was the heart of any winter dwelling, but managing it was a true art. A large, roaring fire was inefficient and dangerous. It consumed a huge amount of firewood and created a fire hazard. Indigenous peoples used fire much more cleverly. In the plains teepee, the hearth was small and compact, often placed in a shallow pit. Only dry hardwood, such as cottonwood or willow, was used. It provided good heat and little smoke compared to coniferous trees, which spark a lot. The secret was to maintain a low but stable flame. Firewood was never piled high. It was arranged neatly, with the ends pointing toward the center, like spokes on a wheel. As they burned down, they were simply pushed further in. This method allowed for very precise control over the fire's intensity. It also conserved fuel as much as possible. Throughout the night, someone in the family, usually an older woman, would tend the hearth, maintaining the glowing embers. In the Iroquois longhouses, there were multiple hearths and they worked in tandem. The smoke holes in the roof created a constant draft. The heat from the fires was distributed evenly throughout the long room, keeping it from cooling down. But the most ingenious method for retaining heat all night was the use of hot stones. This method was common everywhere, from the plains to the subarctic. During the day, smooth, medium-sized river stones were heated in or near the hearth. These stones have a high thermal mass. This means they absorb heat slowly and release it just as slowly. Before bed, the hot stones were removed from the fire with special sticks. They were never placed in the bed uncovered. The hot stones were wrapped in several layers of rawhide to avoid scorching the bedding, or they were placed in special woven bags. These heaters were placed under the sleeping robes, at the feet, or along the sides. They radiated a steady, dry heat for many hours. They warmed the bed from within, even when the fire in the hearth had nearly died out. This was much safer than sleeping too close to an open flame. This simple principle of heat accumulation saved firewood. It provided safe heating during the most vulnerable nighttime hours. It demonstrates a deep understanding of the laws of physics and the properties of surrounding materials. What if I told you the most reliable heat source isn't fire or hides, but other people? In severe winters, indigenous peoples knew the key was not merely to get warm, but to keep warmth as long as possible without losses. On the brutal winter plains and forests of North America, every degree of heat was precious. So the idea of personal space in winter was conditional and secondary to survival. The culture of survival was built on collective warmth, one of the main factors that let many nations endure. Families slept together using shared body heat. In Lakota or Cheyenne Tipis, sleeping places were arranged around the central hearth, where fire not only provided heat, but served as the settlement's center of life. Parents, grandparents, children, even distant kin lay close together, creating a thermal cocoon. This closeness wasn't uncomfortable, it was vital, as combined body heat sustained warmth through cold nights. They covered themselves with one or several large blankets sewn from bison hides, which both protected from cold and conserved space and resources. These hides, treated with animal fat, added insulation and held warmth, keeping a comfortable temperature overnight. This wasn't just space-saving, it was necessary for survival when even small heat losses could be fatal. Heat from multiple bodies accumulated under the hides, forming a steady warm microclimate that lasted all night. One person loses heat, but a group in an enclosed space warms one another. It's a simple yet remarkably effective law of thermodynamics. Collective body heat became a key element of survival, requiring no fuel and little attention. It was a natural solution to cold, mastered over centuries. In Iroquois longhouses, where several families lived together, multiple people also shared the broad sleeping platforms. Families in one bay slept side by side. They combined their sleeping furs and hides to create a shared warm space where heat spread evenly and persisted through the night. Everyone contributed to maintaining temperature. It was natural to the community. This way of sleeping was entirely normal, part of a community-oriented lifestyle rather than one centered on individual comfort. Individual comfort wasn't the priority. Group survival and health were. Community survival always came before personal preference, deeply rooted in culture and tradition. This approach maintained stability and harmony within the group, crucial in winter. In the most extreme conditions, say, during a subarctic blizzard, the group sheltered in a single temporary dwelling. People lay as close as possible to reduce each individual's heat loss. As storms intensified and temperatures dropped below zero, people gathered in one space, forming a living barrier to the cold. They covered themselves with blankets, but the key was people sharing their heat with one another. This principle exists in the animal world, but humans perfected it, combining collective warmth with multi-layer shelters and covers. Damp, cold weather couldn't defeat their defenses because each social layer added another layer of heat passed from person to person. It was the surest way to survive a night when the fire was low and the temperature outside plummeted. Human body heat is constant. It needs no firewood and doesn't go out. Together, a group could maintain a survivable temperature. People endured even severe frost outside by preventing the cold from penetrating within, uniting not only for defense against the world, but to survive merciless winter. This social adaptation to cold is logical and well-designed. Time and conditions taught people to invent simple yet extremely effective methods against the cold. How hard would it be for a modern person to accept such a lack of personal space? We're used to our own enclosed zones and territory, but on the frontier, that concept followed very different rules. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what people actually wore to sleep and which fabrics and materials they used. What to sleep in varied by culture and circumstance. Contrary to popular belief, people didn't always sleep in the same heavy outerwear they wore by day. That would be inefficient and even dangerous. Heavy outer garments like parkas or cloaks were usually removed. Sleeping in them was uncomfortable and, more importantly, could make the body sweat. Moisture is the main enemy in the cold because it conducts heat dozens of times faster than air. Plains peoples often slept in ordinary deerskin underwear, shirts, leggings, and moccasins, soft as a second skin and unrestricted during sleep. Moccasins were an important detail. They were often left on, especially if there might be a need to exit quickly at night. Moccasins were stuffed with dry grass or moss, both for extra warmth and to absorb sweat. There was also dedicated night clothing, roomy shirts of finely tanned deerskin worn only for sleep, looser than daytime garments and better breathing. Some subarctic peoples had entire fur sleep suits, like modern coveralls, sewn with the fur inside. These were crucial where the hearth was weak or absent. In their warm longhouses, the Iroquois could sleep in lighter clothing. They removed outer tunics and moccasins and slept in loincloths and light shirts on warm platforms under protective upper shelves. The key principle was staying dry. If day clothes were wet from snow or sweat, they were never worn to bed. They were first thoroughly dried by the fire, hung on special poles. People always kept spare moss or grass inserts for moccasins. In the morning, the old damp inserts were discarded and replaced with fresh, dry ones. Simple, effective health protection. Thus, sleep clothing balanced warmth, comfort, and dryness as a part of a complete system alongside hide bedding and the hearth's heat. Choosing a winter campsite was as important as the construction itself, a strategic decision on which the community's survival depended. A mistake could make wintering unbearable. No one pitched camp on an open, wind-scoured hill. For wintering, natural shelter was always sought. Ideal spots were river valleys, deep ravines, or canyons. Valley slopes shielded the camp from prevailing winds, greatly reducing wind load on Tipis, hence less heat loss and lower firewood use. Proximity to a river ensured water access by breaking the ice. Floodplain woods along rivers also supplied dry fuel for hearths. Trees gave additional wind protection. Camps were placed in or at the edge of woods. A grove served as a natural windbreak, making life far more comfortable than on open prairie. Plains peoples, such as the Lakota, made winter camps of dozens or even hundreds of tipis. Dense clustering also fought the cold. Tipis sheltered one another from wind, creating a warmer shared microclimate. Northeastern peoples built their longhouses in well-protected sites. Villages were often ringed with high palisades, not only for defense, but as an extra barrier to wind and drifting snow. Site choice also considered winter grazing for horses in later plains periods. Horses were vital to survival and had to be fed till spring. Subarctic peoples living in small groups chose game-rich places. Their semi-subterranean winter dwellings often faced south to catch the scant winter sun for extra warmth. Thus, correct camp placement was the first and one of the most important steps in a survival strategy. It minimized nature's impact and saved precious resources, food and fuel. In the fight against cold, the chief enemy wasn't temperature so much as moisture. It posed the greatest danger. Wet clothing or bedding loses insulating power, turning protection into a deadly threat. Moisture doesn't just chill, it wicks away all heat, making exposure literally life-threatening. Moisture crept in through clothing, walls, every corner, even the air itself. In such conditions, illness came easily, and sleeping on cold ground or in wet clothing slashed chances of survival. Indigenous peoples understood this and developed many effective ways to combat dampness, preventing it from ruining their lives. The first step was proper ventilation, ensuring air circulation and preventing moisture from forming in walls and ceilings. As noted, Tipis and Longhouses had well-designed airflows. These dwellings couldn't be airtight. Otherwise, moisture from breathing and from cooking steam would condense on walls and in every nook. Evaporation from heat and human activity created excess humidity. If such dwellings were sealed, condensation would immediately form on walls and bedding. Moisture would accumulate everywhere, turning the home into a cold, damp trap. In winter, that condensation would freeze, making an icy box. Hides that normally protected from cold would become stiff and frigid, losing their insulating power, turning night rest into a nightmare. Therefore, to stay comfortable and fend off dampness, a constant intake of fresh, dry air below and outflow of moist air through the smoke hole were essential. These simple yet vital elements ensured a healthy microclimate. These natural humidity controls preserved the balance between heat retention and moisture removal. It was a delicate process, but experience showed that sacrificing a few degrees of warmth for dryness and health was necessary. Clothes and moccasins wetted during the day were never left damp. Special poles or racks were set inside near the ceiling, the warmest spot heated by smoke, both to keep warm and to dry items. After hunting or travel, people first hung their clothing to dry. This not only removed moisture but made leather more water-resistant and durable. Warm smoke passing through the garments gently smoked them, adding extra water protection. It was a natural treatment requiring no chemicals, yet greatly improving longevity. Similarly, sleeping hides constantly exposed to moisture needed care. On clear, frosty days, they were taken outside and thoroughly beaten. Frost didn't just remove dust and rime, it literally burned off excess moisture, leaving hides softer and stronger. This was a whole ritual, time-consuming but essential. Without it, winter could become unbearable. In addition, natural hygroscopic materials were used. Sphagnum moss or dry grass made excellent underlays, absorbing sweat and dampness. They soaked up moisture quickly and were easy to replace, maintaining cleanliness and dryness despite constant humidity. Moss was ideal as padding or bed cover, providing softness and insulation from the cold ground, a daily weapon against dampness. Cleanliness and dryness were the foundation of survival, so this routine mattered. Each evening after the fires died and quiet fell, families inspected their shelters, checked for dryness, and fixed issues. It was an unseen but critical part of winter life, a routine dictated by harsh conditions. Fighting dampness became a way of life, tedious but vital. However tired backs were after the hunt, or however hard the work, knowing the home would be dry gave hope for tomorrow. Even in the coldest days, it gave a sense of control. Winter survival was not only about technology but psychology. A successful winter started long before the first snow, with summer preparation the key to all that followed. Summer and autumn were the time when every family and the whole community built the reserves that would carry them through. Life became an unending chain of tasks aimed at stockpiling wealth that couldn't be measured in money. Food, clothing, fuel, and knowledge. All summer and fall, the community gathered resources. Men hunted, bringing meat to dry or processed by other methods. Women dried berries, gathered edible roots, herbs, and plants, and prepared ingredients for winter dishes. These stores fed the community and had to be ample enough to avoid shortages in the coldest season. Huge food reserves guaranteed that people wouldn't risk hunting in a raging blizzard with little chance of success. Women also tanned hides for clothing and blankets to shield from the cold. Every family needed enough warm bison robes and hides for repairing dwellings, tipis. With enough hides and fabrics, shelters became cozy, sturdy havens against wind and cold. Without them, winter tested body and spirit, for clothing and coverings meant survival in extreme conditions. Firewood gathering was another vital task. Near the winter camp, Great wood piles rose day by day. Fuel was as valuable as food. Without it, hearths would go out, and even the strongest bodies would fail in the icy cold. Every trunk and log became part of a life-saving reserve to be used sparingly. Wood didn't just warm bodies, it sustained camp life, though collecting it was laborious and demanding. Winter living also changed. Activity slowed, and people spent more time indoors. There was less need to travel or forage. Instead, it was time to repair gear and make new tools, arrows, and other necessities. Every difficult moment served preparation for the next phase of the long winter, husbanding strength and supplies day by day. Winter was also a time for storytelling, ceremonies, and passing on knowledge. When severe frosts gripped the camp, people gathered in circles to hear elders' tales of ancestors, great battles, and adventures. These stories didn't just keep the hearth's flame, they sustained the community's spirit. Wisdom passed from generation to generation, filling hearts with confidence and the sense that past and future are bound by an unseen thread. Skills and traditions were also passed, from master to apprentice, elder to youth. This measured rhythm, honed over many years, let people conserve energy and endure psychologically. There was no need for unnecessary movement. Everyone knew their tasks and how to use strength wisely. People lived off what they had stored and never used more than needed. Psychologically, settlers were ready for the cold. They viewed it not as disaster, but a natural phase of the yearly cycle, like spring or autumn. Cold was part of life, freeing them from needless fuss. Winter became a season of rest, family closeness, and spiritual practice. Every community member had a role in sustaining camp life, tending the fire, adding logs, maintaining warmth, repairing moccasins, fetching water from frozen sources. The tasks might seem routine, but this coordinated labor built the community's psychological resilience. Everyone knew they contributed to the camp's survival and well-being, and mutual help was a must. Thus, survival depended not only on physical preparation and supplies, material reserves, reliable shelters, and the right mindset let indigenous peoples not only endure winter, but make it part of life's cycle. This allowed them not only to survive, but to live through winter with dignity, in relative comfort, in harmony with nature and one another, recognizing dependence on nature and the need to balance work, rest, and fellowship. Today, we've seen that indigenous survival in harsh winters was no miracle, but the result of deep knowledge refined over centuries. From the aerodynamics of the Tipi and the multi-level bunks of the Longhouse to hot stones and moisture control, every element was part of a single, brilliant system. These methods show profound respect for nature and understanding of its laws. People didn't conquer the cold. They used its own physical principles to create warmth and comfort. This legacy reminds us that the most effective solutions are often the simplest. What other aspects of indigenous life or technology would you like to see in future videos? Perhaps their foodways, hunting methods, or material crafts? Share your ideas in the comments and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new explorations.